Let's get to the big story breakdown now. Bitcoin is trading higher this morning above the 84,500 level. Now, Bitcoin does indeed face headwinds amid outflows as well as tariff-driven uncertainty. The crypto major bucking the trend on Wednesday, a modest Bitcoin rally nearing the 86,000 level, but quickly reversing during the U.S. afternoon trading hours on Fed Chair Powell's comments, where he warned on the effects of President Trump's tariff regime. But prices quickly clawing back above the 84,000 level afterwards. And Bitcoin seeing massive outflows recently, and despite 545 million in net year-to-date inflows, the scale and speed of withdrawal signal a potential shift among institutional investors. Also, Ethereum and Solana also saw outflows, while even short Bitcoin products did post losses. Well, joining me on this Thursday morning is Andy Bear, head of product at Coindesk Indices. Andy, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me. So since you're last on the show, we've seen plenty of volatility across all asset classes, including crypto majors, in particular Bitcoin. But tell me about the resilience we've been seeing in Bitcoin.
The resilience has been incredible. I think that especially when you think about how it might have been expected, Bitcoin had been highly correlated with, say, NASDAQ names. And we could have expected a real kind of repricing, right? Even back to the levels around the election time. Yet, except for a couple of perp liquidation moments where Bitcoin kind of dipped down and then came back up, and we have to be careful not to overinterpret those because those are just liquidation events. Bitcoin's held pretty steady. Yesterday's performance of holding in the 84,000 level and responding positively was really encouraging. Really, when we look forward, right, the Michigan numbers from last week, right, 6.7% expected one-year inflation, highest since 1981, and Chairman Powell's comments yesterday about inflation really helped paint the macro picture for Bitcoin, performing well in high inflation expectation environments.
Yeah, and when we look at the macro picture, we know that there is not as much clarity as we would like. And I know that you've been referring to Bitcoin as perhaps it's in its adolescent phase.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I mean, part of this is explaining Bitcoin's relative performance to gold. Gold, of course, has been a real safe haven, has performed extremely well. People are wondering, when is Bitcoin gonna perform the same way? We believe very thoroughly in the store of value concept. A safe haven asset we still think is a little bit different. When you have a flight to quality event, you go to that safe place, you're in a storm, you tuck in where you feel most confident. Bitcoin is still young, it has imperfect access to banking, it's not as liquid as something like gold, and it's not as much of a go-to. So we think it's a little bit early for it to have actually done what it did last week, which was stay flat in a market that was kind of unhedgeable and very fragile. So despite its adolescence, we've had, I think, one of the first few good examples of Bitcoin holding firm in a market that was kind of falling apart.
Yeah, and I think at this point it's good to take a step back and look at catalysts as well as the outlook moving forward. So as we navigate the current landscape, what are you focused on, especially since we came into 2025 with expectations of deregulation and innovation in crypto? So what is your outlook and where do you stand right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's been a tough quarter, right? It's been a tough couple of months since the inauguration. We like that Bitcoin has only lost about $10,000 since the beginning of the year and is still well higher than election day, but the rest of the space is really in a slump right now. We have to just admit it and be honest about that. Ethereum was at 4,000, it's now at 1,600. Solana was at 270, it's at 133. These are the growth names that we expected to really kind of take off and take root when these regulatory changes took effect, when we had a new SEC chair, when we had stablecoin legislation coming right in front of us, which we still expect. So the growthy side of the digital asset class is right now kind of in a very cautious pause mode. We think that Bitcoin's performance last week and the fact that US Treasuries, the normal safe haven, are acting more like a chess piece than a safe haven is going to help give support to Bitcoin's price. We think that the others will follow. And then once these growth digital assets start to behave better, then we think we can be in a better position for support and an ultimate rally. So Coindesk 20 right now is about 2,500. It also got to 4,000 after the election. We'd like to see it reach all-time highs sometime before the end of the year.
And Andy, less than 60 seconds here, but here in the U.S., tomorrow is a market holiday, so that means equity and bond markets will be closed. But as we know, crypto does trade 24/7. So what's happening with the Coindesk 20 index?
Coindesk 20 is it's actually rebalancing at the end of the month, and no new additions or subtractions. It's going to recap Bitcoin and Ether. The adoption's been very good. We have new clients over in Europe with a fantastic new Wisdom Tree product that's an ETP. We have a lot of desks making options markets and futures markets. We have our perpetual contract on Bullish, which is nearing 15 billion in volume. So the adoption of Coindesk 20 as a trading instrument is going extremely well, while we wait for investors to start to gather and want to sort of put themselves into the asset class. Coindesk 20 is going to be ready with liquidity and implementation and good broad access to the market. So we're very proud and happy with the product. We need the market to grow as fast as it can and meet us there.
Okay, Andy, well, great having you here. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great holiday weekend.
Thanks, Remy.
Thank you.